Hi, welcome back to the channel. I hope you're all doing great. So today I decided that I would do a carnivore Q&A. So I did actually put out a call a couple of weeks ago for any questions to come in the comments, and I had a couple. I had a bit of a response. The reason I thought of doing this video is I often get the same questions asked again and again, and I just thought it would be quite a good idea to put them all in one video. So I've been back through old questions in the comments, and I've put together this list. So let's get stuck in. So one of the most common questions I get is, how long did it take for your symptoms to improve? And similar question, how long did it take you to see a full recovery? It's actually two different questions. So how long did it take till I started to feel a reduction in symptoms? I would say within a month. So I started it about 8 months ago now, and the first couple of weeks I remember that my body was going through that period, that adjustment period, where it can feel a bit strange, you know. I remember feeling like I was withdrawing from something, you know, which now I realise was sugar. So yeah, there was a kind of withdrawal phase and resetting phase, and I would be hard pushed to say that I felt an improvement during that time, although I did notice an improvement in my stomach bloating within a week. That was obvious. So yeah, so within a month I think I started to really notice the upturn in energy and the increase in strength and my ability to wake up in the morning, get out of bed and stay out of bed. That probably happened within a month. But then there's been a process of continual improvement, ups and downs, because I've stuck to the diet as much as I could, but I've had my moments of weakness and I've fallen off the wagon, or I've been through extremely stressful times and I haven't really, been able to enjoy the benefits of the diet. So it's not been, a straight run through, and there's been ups and downs, but it has been overall, the overall trend has been consistent and continually improving. So the question of how long did it take you to see a full recovery, that's assuming that I have fully recovered from multiple sclerosis, which I don't know if I have, because I'm yet to have an MRI scan that shows that I have no scarring on my brain. However, I couldn't not say I haven't had a full recovery from my symptoms, because I was disabled by my symptoms and now I'm not. So I suppose that does count as a full recovery. Maybe my neurologist would disagree with me, but it's funny because I think my neurologist at this point would be happy for me to have a relapse to prove him right. I know, really. So how long did that take? I think maybe 4 months, 5 months, maybe 6 months. It's hard to say, because recovery from something as complex and long-term as multiple sclerosis, it's multifaceted, and there's so many elements to the illness, and some of that is not easily fixable. So yeah, it's just such a complex process that I couldn't say, oh yeah, this is when I fully recovered. But here I am sitting here feeling 98% fully recovered. So okay, I'm going to say that by the time I was 6 months in, I was feeling like I couldn't really claim to have multiple sclerosis anymore, because the only reason I would ever talk of having multiple sclerosis is to explain why my behaviour isn't the same as I would like it to be, because it's compromised by my condition and I feel the need to explain myself. That's the only reason I would go to somebody and tell them I have MS. I'm not in that position anymore. It doesn't come up. It doesn't come up in conversation. I don't feel like it's something I have to flag up, because there's nothing different about me and another able-bodied person at the moment. Like the magnitude of what I'm saying there is hard to grasp, but it's true. So yeah, I think by 6 months in, I would say that I have been feeling fully recovered from my multiple sclerosis daily symptoms. People have been asking about my MRI scan. So in one of my previous videos, I gave the results of an MRI scan and a blood test. So the MRI, that actual MRI was done a while ago. So I am due another one. I usually have an annual MRI scan. And so yeah, that last one I had, which did show scarring, was done before I started the carnivore diet. when we were going through the results of that, he also ordered a blood test for me. So I've had a blood test done on me since I started the diet, and that was interesting. I did a video about that, but I'm still waiting for my next MRI scan. I'm waiting for the scan, my first MRI scan since the carnivore diet I'm yet to have. But I think, you know, any day now a letter could arrive for me telling me that my scan is due. So I'll be really keen to see what those results are and share those results with you guys. I just really want to say about lesions. So the MRI scan is going to tell me whether I have lesions on my brain. The lesions are evidence of demyelination, which is a hallmark of MS. MS is a demyelinating disease, and that's when the immune system attacks the myelin sheathing around the nerve fibers in the brain. And when you are diagnosed with MS, that's usually on the basis of lesions in combination with disability, but the two are not directly related. So it will be really interesting to see if I've got lesions, but also I've come to understand that many people have entirely benign lesions on their brain and they just would never know because they haven't been given an MRI scan. So, and I've been talking over email with some other people, with viewers from this channel, and we've been sort of trying to work out this conundrum about the lesions. The lesions, the number of lesions you have on your brain doesn't directly correlate to your level of disability. It's not that straightforward. However, I've seen Dave Mack's channel. Dave Mack did an interview with me a while ago, and he did another interview with another MS sufferer that's come out since my interview, and that person's MRI scans came back clear of lesions. So I'm just really interested, what about these lesions? You know, I'm not going to be too scared if I do have lesions, because I'm starting to wonder whether lesions are a big deal in the first place. But yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see if there's been any change since I started the diet. Okay, so somebody else has asked, can you provide the exact diet, please? Yeah, lots of people would like to know what exactly I eat every day. So obviously I don't eat the same thing every single day. It does change, but there is a meal plan for a day which I would say is my most typical. It's my go-to, and it's very, very straightforward. And I've talked about it in other videos. I basically eat twice a day. Usually it would be 11 o'clock I'd have breakfast, and that breakfast consists of a full pack of bacon and 4 eggs, which I'd quite like fried in butter. And then some hours later, maybe around 5 or 6 p.m, I will have a quantity of minced beef, ground beef. And that quantity varies, depends how hungry I am. There have been times when I've got through a kilo. And other times where I've barely touched, you know, and I've just not been that hungry. So I also sometimes, in order to save money, because a kilo of beef every day is expensive, in order to save money, I do sometimes add on the side, which makes me keto, not carnivore. Sometimes I go for a little bit of avocado on the side, or some mushrooms on the side, or some cheese. So I do tend to like a little bit of different flavouring on the side. It's not very varied, but it is satiating, and by the time I'm hungry, I'm not, my body's happy to receive the nutrients. That's my most normal day. And and in terms of liquids, I drink water, whether sparkling or still. I like both types of water I like. And I drink coffee and I drink tea. So my coffee, I drink no sugar, no milk. My tea, I drink no sugar, but I do add a drop of soya milk, and that is out of habit. So that's something I've not ever confessed before. There's a drop of soya milk in my tea, which I've found difficult to phase out. So I don't know why I don't just swap it for cow's milk. But after I got MS, I actually developed a lactose intolerance. And so that's why I started drinking soya milk in my tea. And then I just grew to like the taste. So I don't actually like the taste of cow's milk in my tea anymore. I prefer soya milk. So that's just a non-carnivore habit. I don't pay too much attention to be honest, because it's such a small amount. And it just makes the tea a little bit creamier. So, and other people have asked for more specific stuff. Can the ground beef be seasoned? Can you use soy sauce? Can you eat Greek yogurt? Is water the only liquid? I mean, you don't need my permission. You can do, that's the first thing, you can do what you want. It's your diet. You can be as strict as you want, and I'm not telling you how to do it. But if you're asking me what I do, can the ground beef be seasoned? Yes, I season it. I season my beef heavily with salt, and someone else has asked me about the salt I use, and I happen to have it right here. That is Himalayan salt, which I got from the supermarket in Spain. It's I believe it's healthier than other types of salt. Can you use soy sauce? I think that it's personally, I think that it's okay to have a tiny little bit of seasoning, because it is a big ask to never enjoy any of the wonderful flavours that exist in the world ever again for the rest of your life. I don't personally think that's necessary. And I think that if you've experienced huge improvements on the diet, you know, are they really going to all be undone by just a little sprinkle of black pepper? I don't know. I don't think so personally. Other people may disagree with me. It also depends, like, why are you doing the diet? How ill are you? What are you trying to achieve? So I do season my ground beef. I often season with both salt and pepper, and I actually have got like a spice, barbecue spice mill, which I sometimes use on the beef. I don't need it. I just need to add salt and butter, and that's the dinner cooked. Soy sauce is, I don't know. It's really up to you. See what people in the comments say, if soy sauce is bad for you in some way, or if it would break the diet. But you know, you don't want to go overboard on the seasonings and the sauces. It's probably better to wean yourself off them, but I also think just little bits here and there is not a big deal. Can you eat Greek yogurt? Yeah, it's dairy. Of course you can. Did you feel nerve pain on the carnivore diet with MS? Nerve pain. I don't remember the last time I had nerve pain. When I was at my most ill, I had neuropathy, and my memory of that time is hazy because it was such a traumatizing time, but I was in a lot of pain. No, I don't experience that, but I don't know if that's since I started the carnivore diet. I feel like I had rehabilitated to some degree before I started the carnivore diet, so I wasn't really struggling with nerve pain so much as some other symptoms of MS. What electrolytes do you use? I can show you right now. I'll go and get them. There we go. I got this off Amazon, electrolyte complex. I do take these fairly regularly, not every single day, but because I do every now and again get leg cramps, which I believe are because my electrolytes are low. And so yeah, I do supplement. I also supplement with vitamin D. You can get this off Amazon. I'll put a link down below. But there's all different types, and they're really easy to come by, so there we go. I'm ready to fast as well. What was your schedule like? Okay, so lots of people, again, quite a few people have asked me what's my fasting schedule. So I tend to stick to the 16-8 fasting schedule. So that's 16 hours not eating and an 8-hour window of where I can eat. So that's 11 in the morning till 7 at night. That's my eating window. I find that works really well for me. As I said before, I tend to eat twice during that window at 11, and then again closer to 7 o'clock I'll have dinner. And it really is no hardship, and I usually wake up in the morning with lots of energy, and I would really recommend the fasting. I don't recommend fasting to eat less. I recommend fasting to give your body time to digest everything you've eaten, right? So that's the reason the fasting works. Okay, did you ever have walking issues, balance, drop foot, etc.? When did you no longer need mobility assistance? No, I never had drop foot. I did have balance issues. In fact, my first ever episode involved extreme dizziness. I wasn't able to drive because I was so dizzy. And then I remember I was just sort of generally clumsier and less sure-footed. And yeah, I wobbled. I did wobble a lot, which was kind of weird because I've always been a dancer, not a professional dancer, but you know, if anyone who knew me before I had MS would be like, oh yeah, she's really into dancing. So to have balance issues, yeah, I remember feeling quite self-conscious about that. More to the point, my walking issues came from my extreme fatigue. So I started to use walking aids, a walking stick or a wheelchair. I actually got so bad that I made use of a wheelchair at times. This was before I moved to Spain, way before I started the diet. When did I no longer need mobility assistance? Yeah, that's an interesting question. It's a really good question. So when I moved out to Spain, I brought my wheelchair with me and my walking stick with me, and I haven't used my wheelchair since I moved to Spain. That's packed away in the garage. But my walking stick, I did use when I first arrived here, and it was weird because I remember, see, I have one neighbour up the mountain, in the mountain cabin. There was one other person living up the mountain, just up the hill from me, and when I first arrived, she became used to seeing me walking around with my mountain stick, which is just over here. I'll show you my mountain stick. This is my trusty dog walking stick. As you can see, it has a shock absorber on the bottom. I would be in an absolute panic if I lost this stick. So she was used to seeing me with this stick, which doesn't look like a mobility aid in the sense of disability. It's just like a hiking stick that anyone could have. And so this neighbour of mine was really used to seeing me with the stick, but she didn't link it to disability. And then one day I went down into town and I took with me the other stick I have, which is a disability walking stick. And I had to use it that day because I knew the layout of the town is just along one long street. And it's like the lawyers at one end, the banks at the other, the supermarket, you know, often you're just going back up and down this big long street. And I had a load of appointments that day, really important appointments at the lawyers, at the notaries and the bank. I think I was purchasing this house that I'm sitting in. So I went down into town and I took my walking stick with me, my disability walking stick with me. And I bumped into my neighbour, and I kid you not, she went, "You don't need that," and she did this swiping gesture at my walking stick. Wow, like I mean, this kind of stuff just goes on all the time when you have a chronic illness, especially an invisible one. For some reason, people do get shocked and offended somehow by disability paraphernalia. Yeah, that was extremely shocking. I really felt like she was saying, stop exaggerating your condition. Why? But the thing is, what she didn't realise is I desperately needed this stick, which she just didn't associate with disability. So anyway, I don't know if I explained that story very well, but that's just a moment that I remembered that tells me, yeah, I still used mobility aids when I first moved out to Spain. So when did I realise that I don't really need them anymore? I think that my mobility was already on the mend before I started the carnivore diet, because I'd been working on my stamina, walking my dogs up the mountain since I first arrived, but it still was not 100%. I still had fatigue, and like I say, I have a sort of sense of panic if I lose this stick. This stick is my crutch. When did I no longer need mobility assistance? Well, now I would say that my mobility is fantastic. Like, I feel great. I feel no trouble. Like, I would still, when I walk the dogs, I would still always take this. I wouldn't go uphill without my stick. But it would never cross my mind to take my disability walking stick into the city, for example. If I was going to walk around a city for the day, let's say, on a day trip, I would be able to do that with no walking aids. And that wasn't necessarily the case when I first moved to Spain. I would have to factor in the fact that that's a lot of walking, you know, that's a whole day of walking, you know. It's easier to see it in terms like that. What would I have felt uncomfortable with before, and what would I be absolutely fine to do now? So I guess, how long did it take? I mean, let's say 6 months again, because, you know, it's been a bit of a process of coming back up to full ability. Funnily enough, one of the issues I had with walking, with my MS, well, I remember I had a neuro rehab team back in Birmingham, and they were teaching me to walk slower. See, my issue is that I always take huge strides and very energetic strides, and I'd always been like that. And then when I got MS, I couldn't keep doing that. That was my instinct. My body was instinct was to just keep taking these big strides and pushing and walking, and but I couldn't follow through with that. So I had to relearn how to walk with this neuro rehab team. But this leads into the other question I have here, actually, because it's all to do with MS symptoms. And so somebody's asking, you spoke about activity payback with your MS. Do you still get that now you're feeling better on Carnivore? So I have ME/CFS, and PEM is a big problem for me. Hoping Carnivore will stop this. So what this person is talking about, PEM, post-exertional malaise, it's kind of in the same ballpark as fatigue. It's connected, but it's referring to a slightly different phenomenon. Post-exertional malaise is when you cannot exert yourself without a huge fatigue payback. So, and the more exaggerated it is, the more disabling it is. So there was a time when I was so ill, and this was my hugest MS symptom. I would say this was the straitjacket that kept me pinned on the sofa all day. And it was also the thing that people understood the least and led to a lot of judgment. I just couldn't explain to people why I could do an activity and then claim to be disabled. Because it would be because if I did an activity, now let's take as an example, taking a shower. It's really something as simple as that. When I had my worst post-exertional malaise, I would be absolutely wiped out by having a shower. It would be a huge build-up to go and get in the shower, and then I would be on my hands and knees in the shower because it would be hard to stand for long periods of time. And then getting out of the shower, I'd go up to my room and I would have to lie down on my bed for an hour to recover from having taken a shower. Like, that is not my situation now, not even close. Like, that's unimaginable to me now. I don't have that anymore. But I did, that was my life. That was the straitjacket I had. And what people who have post-exertional malaise will fully understand this. You can't push through it. It's not something you could just go, oh, who cares? I'm just going to do what I want to do. No, absolutely not. The more you try and push through it, the worse it is. There's no chance. There's no chance. And to try and explain that to people, I found so difficult. People would just be like, well, why don't you just get a job? And I'd be like, they're like, you can walk, you can talk, you can, why don't you just get a job? And I'd be like, it's a really, really difficult thing to live with. And do I still get it now? No, but a tiny bit, yes. There are times when I think, why do I feel so tired? Oh yeah, I do have MS. That's where I'm at the moment these days, where it's like this vague notion that, oh yeah, maybe it's because I do have multiple sclerosis, and I mean, that just puts multiple sclerosis on a par with eczema and irritation. It's quite astonishing to think like how bad it was and how so much better it is now. And I feel like I've been freed from the prison I was in. That I just couldn't push through the walls of it, and now I can. So I really do push myself sometimes now. Like, I dug a huge potato patch at Mushroom Manor 3 or 4 days ago. I was there. I'm going to go back there actually in a couple of days. We're just going backwards and forwards. Ant's there at the moment, working on the house, and I've been working in the garden because it's suddenly caught up that it's mid-March, and it's time to plant some potatoes and onions. Yeah, it's just time to plant stuff in the garden, and I do want to plant a vegetable garden. If anything, just to sell produce or to just have stuff if the apocalypse hits, So I went and planted a whole bunch of potatoes and dug out the potato patch beforehand, and I did that I think it took me one evening and one morning, and I will video it. When I go back, I'm going to dig an onion patch, so I'll show you what I've been doing. But I did all of that, and I didn't suffer from post-exertional malaise, so that was a win. Okay, anything else? Dogs are carnivores. Why are you giving them vegetarian food? So I got it in the neck from my last video, which I think is really funny, because I showed in my last video, A Day in the Life, that I give my dogs carrots. I think it's genius. It just occurred to me one day, why don't I try giving them a carrot? Because I've got one of my dogs is absolutely greedy little so-and-so. This little doggy is the greediest little madam I've ever met. Do I have to justify why I give my dogs carrots? I'm not entirely sure it's that big a deal, because it's not their only food. They're certainly not on a vegan diet, but there are benefits to dogs having carrots. It helps clean their teeth. It's a bit of fibre and poo identification. I always know what poos are my dog's poos because there's little bits of carrots in them. So that is why I'm giving them carrots. That is not to say that I think that that's an appropriate food for a dog. I think dogs should be purely carnivore. And the second I can afford to do it, that's what my dogs will be. But right now, I can't afford it. I can barely afford my own carnivore diet. And I would love to prioritise my dogs over me, but what's the point of doing that? It's like on an aeroplane when they say put the mask on yourself first before you put it on a baby. Like, I need to be healthy and I need to be active so that I can work, so that I can bring in money, so that I can feed them a proper diet. But all in good time, all in good time. Okay, so one more question. I've got somebody asking here. The question only came in actually just a few hours ago. Could you please share your thoughts on how I could keep eating carnivore without a fridge or a freezer? Yeah, so he's discovered my channel while searching how to be a carnivore diet off-grid without a fridge. So yeah, it's a big deal. It's hard to be carnivore off-grid in the winter if you don't have a big enough solar system to run a fridge, definitely. Right, well, you could potentially think about running a gas fridge so that you wouldn't have to rely on solar panels, right? Get a gas refrigerator, and drying meat, curing it. So a lot of meat in Spain is dried, it's cured meat. So I guess that's what's traditionally been done. But what I would definitely advise is to dig a cold store into the ground. So a friend of mine actually gave me this top tip, just a temporary solution to my lack of fridge issue over the winter. A big plastic box, like like a storage box that you might get in IKEA or something, and with a layer of water at the bottom, and then put another box inside that with your food in it. And then put that outside in a shaded area, so that keeps it cold. You do want to be careful to change the water as much as possible though, because you don't want just standing water contaminating things. So, but other than that, what we were going to do, the big plan was to dig a cold store into the ground. So yeah, dig a hole, and in the winter that's great because it's cold anyway, and put a metal or a plastic box inside it, and Bob's your uncle. So that's what I would suggest. Do a cold store. The only reason I didn't get around to it is because by the time I did get around to it, I was selling the cabana and moving. But I do plan to do that in Galicia, because although Galicia is on grid currently, we do want to make it off grid, and I do want to make sure that all my bases are covered, so that if the electricity went off, I would have somewhere to put my meat. And I think that all carnivores should be thinking about that. You know, what would you do if the electricity went and your freezer packed full of meat all went rotten? You know, I think it's not a bad idea to have a backup plan, just in case, because we rely on so many complex systems and it wouldn't take much for them all to come crashing down. So yeah, a cold store, that's my suggestion. Yeah, so there we go. That's a mixture of the most commonly asked questions and some specific questions that I thought were really good questions. And so I hope that you found that informative, and I look forward to seeing you guys, not that I can see you, but talking to you guys next time. Take care. Bye.